I'm not in the mode of collecting things anymore, but I do have some saved searches on Craigslist and eBay and other sites like that that I use so that if things come up that I really, really want or I might really, really want, I'll go take a look or I'll go pick it up. I saw a sealed new inbox Macintosh Classic come up on eBay, which is an interesting find for those who know Macintosh classics. New inbox for a classic, if it was truly never touched, means that it's not if it has problems, but the extent of the problems. Even if it was stored in like temperature controlled conditions for the past 33 years, it won't be able to escape having issues. The capacitors would leak unprovoked all the time. Batteries would explode, corroding the metal chassis of the case, destroying the circuit boards. And so this was a bit of a gamble, actually picking one of these things up because I didn't know if it was even going to be salvageable. A new inbox machine, and you don't know if it's going to be salvageable. But it was a cool project. And so this video is taking a look, opening it up for the first time, and seeing if this thing is dead or alive. It's kind of like Schrodinger's Mac. And seeing if we can get it powered on, if it's working, and if not, if it's too far gone, or if it's something that we might be able to salvage. And just as a reminder, I don't talk during my videos, but I do provide more detail in the subtitles. So if you're interested in what's going on or why I'm doing what I'm doing, turn on closed captions. Then you'll get a lot more detail. Yeah, this is a fun one. So hopefully you enjoy the video as much as I enjoyed making it. Well,